Hey, what's up? My name is Daoud Heidami. I'm a real estate agent, co-founder and principal of the Catalyst team at Compass, and welcome to a New York conversation where we talk to notable New Yorkers about their New York. Our goal is to support our small businesses, so we'll hear from our guests who their favorite small business is, tag them in our repost of this interview, and give them lots of New York love. Tonight's special guest is a dear friend of mine, one of my buddies. His name's Trey Lyford. Trey is a theater creator, director, performer, and co-artistic director of the highly acclaimed physical theater company Rainpan 43 Performance Group. I'm excited because he's one of the good ones. So without further ado, Trey.
Hey.
What's up?
Not much. How are you?
Hey, man. Thank you for doing this with me.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I really appreciate you. We've known each other for quite some time at this point, right?
63 years, I think it is. I didn't have a beard when I first met you, and now I'm all gray and bearded. And
But you look fantastic.
Thank you very much. So do you.
We met each other in grad school back in 2000. Yeah, right at the turn of the century there.
And turn of the century.
Yeah. So you have been like one of these really inspiring and amazing people in my life that I, talk about frequently to a lot of friends, just because you're one of those people who creates. And you have lots of really amazing pieces, and I've been fortunate enough to see a lot of those pieces. What has been your recipe for success?
Failure. I would say failure. Well, two things for that. One is like most of the stuff that I make is based on kind of characters and idiots that are failures at their core, and it's part of their humanity and their stupidity, but also just failure in the process, like and I struggle with this. Even when I teach sometimes, and I try to tell my students, like, you've got to fail, you got to suck before you're good, and it's just being willing to be lame. Like when you first start into something, that it's okay, as somebody who's like very sensitive to that, and I watch my I have a daughter who's seeing them kind of engage with the world and realize, oh, I don't want to do this because I suck at it. I don't want to play this, or I don't want to try this. Like constantly having that lesson, I think that we always have, which is learn how to fail and be okay with it, to be okay with being not good in order to get good. So same thing with a show or any venture you're going into,
Yeah. And how do you know when you fail?
You feel it. You know it. It's deep down. You can feel it in your gut. There's a lot of, oh boy, that one hurt. And that's, there's like a lot of self-hatred, and, you have to get through all that to kind of the other side and go like, it's okay to be half of what I know I can be, so it's that hope forward and also that kind of acceptance of the present. But I don't know, there's, and on stage, like one of the reasons I love comedy is like, you just don't get the laugh. It's not personal. It either works or it doesn't. So that's really direct. And in life, I think it's murkier. It can be a lot blurrier in terms of when you know it.
That's fair. But when you're as a creator of art, not in your personal world, but as the creator, how do you know when you as an artist are like, oh, I need to rethink this moment, or I want to dig into this just a little bit more for people who, because being a creator like yourself is such a unique thing. Not many people create. Many people usually interpret the story of the creators.
I would argue that even people that interpret, let's say like a traditional actor that's doing more regional theater or even Broadway or whatever, they're creating as well. You're creating the depth of the character. There's a big story that actors aren't creators, they're interpreters. And I think that's a hogwash. I think it's hogwash. I I think they're all creating, you know, and that's all I'm doing. I'm diving into something, and rather than saying what's on the page, I'm saying what my impulse is. That becomes the play. It's not written. It's kind of built through improvisation and through repetition. So I mean, I know from, you know, engaging with my collaborators, they kind of say, that's not working. You know, we challenge each other. So I love to be in the room with other people so they can question what you're putting forward, and you can go, oh, you're right, this is sucking. But also, like, in the process of making, you have to have audience. The audience is the primary person. And I think that's true of anything. Like, let's say with the clients that you're working on this side of your industry, stuff that you do, like, how are your clients responding? The audience, and this is kind of a gross corporification of theater, but like, how are your clients responding? Are they getting it? And then what is that relationship? And so they tell you when success is there and when you need to dive deeper in. And so I don't really know a play until the audience is there going, no, or definitely that, or that bit that you thought was really just kind of tapestry between two really great bits, that actually ends up being the best part of the show. And you're like, oh no, they're really liking this. Let's open that up and make that a whole section, you know?
I love that. So you're a true collaborator, and that's a big part of how that's your recipe for success.
Yeah. I mean, it's a part of what I really believe in it. You know, I really believe in that conversation between artists, that conversation with audiences, that conversation, even like in life with friends, you know, when you're like lost and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. Like none of us do this alone. You know, we're all collaborating. It's just whether or not we acknowledge it or not, you know.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicola Asbury's giving you a what's up.
What's up? High fives.
What's been a pivotal moment in your career?
You know, there were, I mean, first of all, it was kind of being supported by Here Art Center, which is a small theater downtown on 6th Avenue in Spring. And it really, yeah, Here Art Center is, you know, we're talking about small business, like in terms of places that have been kind of lifeblood to New York City, these small theaters all over the city that feed the ideas to uptown. I mean, you can go back 5-10 years of any Broadway production and you're going to find the young kids downtown that are making the work, and places like Here Art Center supporting that and making that happen. So when Here kind of really presented my original works with Jeff Sobel, who was my main collaborator earlier on, like those works and the support from that theater really made a huge difference. The other thing was, like, you know, I mean, this is gross and true, but like we had a hit from the New York Times, and this is the horrible truth of New York theater, but we got this massive review and then a huge front page arts and leisure section kind of photo, and it changed everything, and overnight. And that's the terror and beauty and glory of the New York Times. It's just like, I know of artists, I won't call them out, but that they're like, ban the New York Times. They're way too powerful. And I think modern media is very different than what it was then. You know, now it's all kinds of word of mouth and you know, this kind of thing, Instagram and people spreading the word. But the Times has way too much power.
Was that for all wear bowlers or machines?
Seven.
Yeah.
That's right. Machines.
That was
no,
that was one of my most favorite creations of Rainpan 43. It was brilliant. I still got it with Michelle till this day.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, that talk about, it was all wear bowlers where that was the first kind of thing we did that really helped us, and then machines was exactly what we're talking about. I mean, the whole life of that show was Rube Goldberg machines, thousands of Rube Goldberg machines. We counted them at one point. I don't remember the number, but it was like 230 machines on stage. But the majority of them fail. And that was the joy. Like, people loved watching us try to make these crazy machines that make your eggs and turn on the fan. And like, open your bed up and all these things. Like, they loved watching it completely collapse underneath us. They loved watching us, So I think, that's a great kind of segue into failure. And a truth tell failure has been the lifeblood of my life, my work.
Yeah. So this was part of your journey here in New York, and so first of all, what brought you to New York? How did you end up here? Because I know you're a Vassar alumni, which is how I heard of who you were before I actually met you through Emily Donahoe.
Right.
Another Vassar alumni.
Yeah.
So what was your journey to get to New York?
Well, I went to Vassar kind of on a fluke. I'm from Texas like you, kind of. I lived in Texas the last part of my military life. My dad was in the Navy, so I went all over, and I ended up in Texas, and then went to Vassar. And then everybody from Vassar was either from New York or was going to New York, or and you always have that life dream of going to New York. New York was so overwhelming for me, though. I mean, I was incredibly overwhelmed by New York City. But I came, just because so many of my friends from college came, and moved to New York. And also, like, because I was in the arts and in theater, like, New York was the place that seemed the legitimate coast. The West Coast is like where you go if you're really good looking. The East Coast is where you go if you have a lot of things to consider and you have a lot of talent, and you're a legitimate artist.
You're a legitimate artist and you're good looking. So
thank you. But your lighting is so much better than mine right now. I feel really outplayed here.
So when you first moved to New York, where did you live?
My very first apartment was the brownstone of a famous movie actress that used to perform with Ronald Reagan. And she was the grandmother of a friend of mine from Vassar.
Really?
So her name was Vivica Linfors, and she was a famous Brecht actress. She performed like Brecht plays in America and abroad. She was Swedish, but she was a movie star. And she had recently passed away, and they asked me if I would be willing to live in her house, her giant brownstone on 93rd between Lex and 3rd.
Whoa.
And so I lived there to kind of keep the house looking occupied while they were deciding what to do with it. It was incredibly depressing. It sounds amazing, it's like the dream. I had this entire brownstone. It had a beautiful garden in the back, but I was right out of undergrad, and I was just like lost. I was so lost.
You were out of undergrad. Wow.
Yeah.
And did you pay rent?
No, no, I didn't pay rent. But what I did do is I was like the doorman for their fancy party, because they lived next door. The daughter and granddaughter lived like 2 doors down next to Elia Kazan, actually.
What?
It was like where I lived, then Elia Kazan's house, and then their house. Yeah, I lived next door to Elia Kazan.
And you weren't paying rent?
No, I wasn't paying rent. But what I was doing is I was walking their dogs. They had 2 golden retrievers, and I was redoing all of the files of Vivica Linfors' file cabinets. She had these like file cabinets full of movie from MGM and all these other studios she worked at, and I had to organize all of her files.
Wow.
And then I also was like the doorman for parties. So they would have parties, and I would be like, "Hi, welcome to the party. Come on in. I'll take your coat." Like, I was doing odd jobs to get the rent.
So you were basically getting paid about $100 to $200 an hour to walk.
Yeah, I mean, it's about generosity. There's so many stories of it. This is why I always tried to be generous to people when they were coming in. Like, we have a friend in common, Mika Jennings, who's an incredible performer and actor, who was younger at UCSD when we were there, and he came to New York and he lived with me for a short while. Because I had generosity. People always talk about New Yorkers being these like tough guys, but the truth is, like, New Yorkers are so generous and willing to help people, no matter, even as small of apartments they have or large homes that they have. So it was from their generosity that I was able to do that. But yes, if you counted out how much I got paid for the rent of that entire brownstone, I was getting paid.
Yeah, no. I'm mostly just teasing you just because it sounds like So, because I honestly, I don't know that I would have left it to go to grad school. Did you go to grad school directly from there? Or what was your journey to UCSD?
No, I had a crazy journey where I lived in London for a short while, and I met my now wife, Suli, doing the Edinburgh Festival. And then, so we moved to I moved to Philadelphia to be with her when an apartment fell through in Chinatown. It's all apartments. You know this, Catalyst guy. It's all apartments. So my story is because I had an apartment and it fell through. I had a friend from Okinawa, Japan from when I was a kid. We lived in Japan, and she and I were going to live together in Chinatown. And literally the week before I was going to move in, she called me and she's like, you remember our other friend we had? She decided to move to New York. So I'm giving her the apartment. And I'm like, what? You can't, what? I'm literally about to move. So I ended up in Philly. And then from Philly, I applied to UCSD and ended up there, and then went back to New York after that.
All right.
Crazy.
That's great. And then after UCSD, is that when you moved back to New York to that Ludlow apartment?
Yeah, that's right.
So that's my New York story. My New York story is when I first time when I came to New York, I stayed in that apartment with, I think it was Emily, for like a week. It was
that
like,
was your first, where was I?
I don't know where you were. I don't know where you were.
Crashed in my place. See, because you got to pass it on. Because I got an entire brownstone. You got a shitty apartment on the Lower East Side.
No, come on. Every time I'm in the Lower East Side, I go, when I first moved to New York, my buddy Trey let me stay in his place. It was on the Lower East Side, and it made me so happy because it was such a vibrant nightlife, vibrant neighborhood. You walked outside, and all of a sudden, it was just like everybody came to this neighborhood.
Yeah, you didn't have to go anywhere. It was great because you could be like, your friends would be like, you want to go out? And you'd be like, yeah, why don't we go out downstairs?
Yeah.
They'd travel all the way across town, and you would just be like, oh, hey, dude. You walk out. It was the best. My wife hated it, but I loved it down there.
Yeah. So what made it, so speaking of love, what made you fall in love with New York?
The surprises of it, I think. Because no matter, I just can't even count the number of times something would happen or I would go someplace and I'd be like, what the hell is this place? Like, even though it's a really contained space in terms of land, you know, Manhattan being a fairly small area and Brooklyn, I just endlessly full of surprises. And as somebody who has kind of an ADD, and I get bored really quickly, I get very antsy really quickly. New York is just always throwing a new curveball at you. And I just love that. I love that how you can't ever really be ready for it all, you know?
The challenge of it all. And you're talking about that from an artistic perspective or as a life perspective?
Both. I mean, both. You know, artistically, what's wonderful about it is that you're not the art. Like in most other cities, like as an artist, you are the artist. You're the artistic community. Whereas in New York, you can be a part of the artistic community, but you're also a fan of all the other stuff that's happening. You're not responsible for maintaining the art of that particular place. You know?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's so true. Do you have a favorite New York corner?
You know, I have to say I have two of them. There's so many good ones. The first one is like the corner of in Brooklyn. It's the corner of Green Avenue and Green and Grand. It's right there. This kind of a block up from Speedy Romeo, but there's a bodega there called the Hole in the Wall. It's just called Hole in the Wall. It's a crappy bodega. And
on Instagram, because we'll tag them.
Oh, I should. I don't know if they're called Hole in the. I doubt. I think Salam is not on. I don't think he's on Instagram, but he might be. I have no idea. But it was Salah and then another guy, his brother. But you know, they would give my daughter like little pop-ups. You know, I mean, I feel like New York bodega culture, I love it. I love bodega culture. It's shitty and full of cat hair and smelly, crappy linoleum and ceilings falling down. You can't get a breakfast sandwich better than that at like Sardi's or wherever. I don't know, some fancy restaurant. You know, I've never been to Sardi's. I don't know if it's fancy or not. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's one. And then the other one is stupidly, and it's kind of heartbreaking. Maybe to other people it's cheesy, but is the one in Soho, right, where the old DKNY sign was. Right on Broadway and Houston, I guess it is. Is that right? And they painted over it. I think now it's a Hollister sign. Now they built a building there, but it used to be this corner like you would go to, and it just always felt like you were in New York because it was. I think it was a part of some TV thing. They showed the Donna Karan DKNY sign.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
You're too young maybe to remember that.
I don't know that I was. I don't know that I was in the city. I came to the city in 2003. So I've been here a little under, what is that, 18 years? That's 17, which is kind of amazing and nuts. So this bodega, so did you move to Brooklyn from Ludlow? So you've kind of been, when you first moved to the city, you were where? Where were you? Where was the town?
Very first time? The townhouse was on 93rd and Lex.
93rd and Lex. Okay, so you were East Side, then you moved to Lower East Side, and then you moved to Brooklyn. Did you ever do the West Side?
No, you know what? My very, very first exposure to New York was I had a friend at Juilliard, and so the Upper West Side was my very, very first kind of deep dive into New York, and that always also has a very dear place in my heart. You know, Colson White, I don't know if you've ever read, Colson Whitehead, who did Underground Railroad Game, and Underground Railroad, the book.
Okay, no. I haven't read it.
He's an amazing author, but one of the things that he wrote, and I can't remember now the book that it's from, but the very first chapter is all about how we all have multiple New Yorks in our lives. We have this layered New York City. And so you have the present New York, and then you have the New York when you first moved here, and you have the New York as you've lived your life in New York. And you can turn anywhere and go, oh, that used to be, or because New York, in the Ken Burns thing too, it's like New York is always changing. It's always dynamically, transforming itself. That's like, people are kind of like, I wish things, it used to be better. It's never been better. It's always moving. That's what makes New York so exciting, is that there's like this blood flow through it that constantly is changing. Whereas other cities they stagnate, or they have a kind of like, it's always like this. But New York is always, the only thing New York is always like is that it's always changing. And so I do have multiple New Yorks in my life. And so Brooklyn became one of them after, my wife hated the Lower East Side, where there was just way too many mice and screaming drunk people, and so we moved to Clinton Hill. Yeah. And I thought I would hate, and at first I hated it, and then I grew to love it. I love Clinton Hill.
Yeah. Wow, Trey, that's such a huge love letter to New York. That your description about how it's always changing, because it is. You're right. It's always changing, and that's the beautiful thing about it. And every time it changes, it grows. Like New York went through COVID and is still going through COVID, but it was like the worst city in America, and then it became the best city in America in terms of because there's so many people here. And a big part of this, and the reason why this all started, was to create this love letter to New York, and then also support some of these small businesses within the city to give them all kinds of love. So, give me some small businesses that you love here in the city, and then we'll tag them in the repost of this interview.
Sure. I mean, I love so many small theaters, of course, in the city. So here Arts Center, the Tank is a great space. St. Anne's Warehouse, which isn't so small, but it's still one of the smaller theaters.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, and they're all up and down the city. I wish I knew all of them I could name. But hole in the wall bodega on Grand and Green. I recommend. I have a dear friend who really does a lot of tutoring for people called Intelligentsia Tutoring by Hilda. Hilda Seidman is an actress and also tutor for kids, and they do a great job tutoring students and people. That's a company I think is really great.
Awesome.
And then, so I just, the last one that really sticks in my head is a small little cafe in Clinton Hill called Choice Cafe, which has changed owners a little bit. I mean, it's still an original owner, but the partnership kind of has mutated and changed a little. But it's still just a great local businesses that's been, these core places that like build communities. Like that was a cafe that existed right where my current apartment is, mm-hmm. and it existed there. Anyway, it existed there, and it held on for a long time and is still there, and it's been, I don't know, 15 years, and the whole community built up around it. And now, of course, there's a Starbucks across the street. And back in the day, it was a key food. There was nothing there except for a lot of things there. Let's reframe that. There was an entire community that was there that then was uprooted, through gentrification. But at the time when I first moved there, there was this one little bougie cafe that still held on, and it's kind of, now it's been, I don't know, it's the New York story. It's the thing.
Yeah. Did you ever go there and just like chill and create, or, do you have lots of really great memories there? Did you go and, I don't know, have some tea?
I mean, they had amazing kind of to-go foods. You would go and they were the same owners who originated Dough Donuts. If you've ever had a Dough donut, which is an insane, that place has also been sold. So many, it's so different. There was also, a lot of those original cafes right in Clinton Hill. I sat in many of them and thought up ideas and wrote sketches down and drew drawings of stupid ideas about tap dancing on bubble wrap and, all kinds of dumb things. They're great. It's the creative centerpiece of, people talk about the Great White Way. I think the best place is all the cafes that has thousands and millions of creative people in them. If you could hone all of the energy that's in cafes, the creative energy of playwrights and screenwriters and filmmakers and painters and sculptors and artists, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
It is harnessing. It's being harnessed by New York,
Yeah. That's you're such a truth teller, Trey. I love
the great stage. You've come to the right place, young man.
I know. I love it. True, you're right, though. I mean, New Yorkers there's a lot of people who come to New York are creative people, which is mostly who we're speaking with New York Conversation, notable New Yorkers. And you're one of those people who kind of pontificates the true beauty of what New York is. We're kind of like the place where creation happens, where art happens, and it's,
and I would add to that, because I feel like in full disclosure, I don't currently live in New York. I live in Philadelphia. And I moved to Philadelphia because of my wife's artistic connections and opportunities here, but also my kid and school and places that we wanted her to go. But what's interesting about that dynamic is that I think that the cities around New York are in conversation, not only just close by, but LA, Chicago, they're all artistically in conversation with New York. And if you maintain that conversation, it's flowing not only just in the city, but the conversation happens all around it because it becomes this magnet. Just like, the farmer's market brings farmers in from all over. New York is the market for creative minds. So even though I'm not living there, I go there all the time. I'm always talking to artists that are based there. I'm collaborating with artists that are based there. So, and also I'm collaborating with New York artists in Philadelphia, people that lived in New York, and we get together, they're like, we should do something together. And then, so it's spinning outside of its own orbit as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's so true. because that's what happens is, and a lot of our notable New Yorkers come to New York for work, and have a really great relationship with New York, like you and your family do actually. This is you're a big part of the fabric of the conversation of this, which is kind of. So I wanna play a fun word association game where I'm gonna say a couple of things about like a New York word or thing, and then tell me whatever comes to mind, or if there's a story behind it. Feel free to do that. But it's just gonna be really fun and easy. So the first one is a favorite New York live performance.
Garth Brooks, Central Park.
Who?
Garth Brooks. What do you mean, who? How dare you, sir? Texting you. No, I saw Garth Brooks in Central Park. It was amazing.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
it was amazing. But let me come up. Favorite Garth Brooks song? Texas? No.
Different guy. He did Friends in Low Places. That was his biggest hit, probably.
I got friends in low places.
That's it.
Okay, all right, I'm going to stop.
Yeah. I was going to let you keep going.
And this is why I didn't do musical theater. This is why.
You sound great. You sound great. You've been paid to sing before, don't lie.
I have, in theater and film, in fact. But I mostly, didn't really do much of that. You, my friend, have the most angelic voice of all. You have
thank you.
Especially, well, in everything you do. I'm not going to pinpoint one. Give me when you lived here, what was your commuting pet peeve? A New York commuting pet peeve?
Oh God, there's so many. I think I don't know, man. I think probably the anxiety that you get from being crammed in like a sardine in a clothes.
Imagine that today with COVID.
No, I can't. I really can't. I mean, it's just so intense that's got to.
Actually, I want to also add to that, which is that like I got on the subway today, and everyone is actually really respectful of each other's space, and there was something really wonderful, and I got in like early in the morning where most people are actually going to their offices, and it was just like everyone was really like respectful of each other and each other's space, which is kind of really great. So it's what New Yorkers really great. Everyone's aware of each other's spaces, which is really great. Tell me your favorite pizza joint.
There's a place in Clinton Hill called Nice Pizza. I don't know if it's still there, but it was French pizza, super thin crust, huge pieces of like sopressata, like that, like laid out. It was very good.
What's it called? Nice?
Nice Pizza. Yeah, I don't know if it's still there. It was on Franklin.
Oh, okay. I'll look them up if they're there. We're tagging them.
Yeah.
Give me a hidden gem.
A hidden gem.
Yeah.
Oh God, I feel like nothing's hidden anymore.
What's your hidden gem? Like, is there a? I know that sounds ridiculous, but
my hidden gem in terms of like the places I like to go.
Yeah, I mean, like, is there a place that you're like, I love going here, and not everyone knows about it, kind of thing?
Yeah, you know what? I love the Lower East Side pickle shops. I love that and the Chinese bun shops.
What?
Like, if you go to any Chinatown like bread shop, you can get like egg and cheese and or ham and melted cheese, or they have different fillings, and they're like these sweet breads that have all this and they usually have bubble tea or something, which I don't particularly like, but the Chinese bread shops are really delicious. And then there was a pickle place on the Lower East Side called the Pickle Guys that then moved. If you ever watched that film Crossing Delancey from like the 70s, it's all about a pickle monger.
Oh,
But
no.
because Delancey Street, all that area in the Lower East Side is old Jewish, like New York, Bialys and pickles and all of this stuff. And a lot of that stuff has changed a little bit, but you can still find a good knish or a good. I just went to Katz this last weekend. Katz's Deli. That's not really a gem. It's a gem. I like, and Russ and Daughters, these are places that like, they're iconic. They're not even like secret.
Yeah.
But the cover's been blown too because the lines were around the block both places. And I was like, it didn't used to be like that.
Yeah.
Russ and Daughters in particular. I used to be able to just walk into Russ and Daughters. And,
Wow.
yeah.
I didn't know about the places in Chinatown. Wow.
The other thing about Chinatown is they're the best place to get a haircut.
What?
Just going to any but any Chinese place, they give you like a head massage. I mean, it's like $18 and you get like an amazing haircut, a massage, a shampoo. It's incredible. Yeah, get a little sweetbread snack on the way out. Boom, done.
Oh my God, I miss you. I love you so much. Okay, I got two more, and then we're calling it. But
all right,
before we do that, for those of you watching, join us here every Tuesday where we continue the series we talk with our amazing New Yorkers. Oh, I love you so much. About their New York. And then, and if you don't live in New York, come visit us, come support New York. If you live in New York, support these small businesses that we're talking about here today, because that's what we do, right? We're New Yorkers, we support each other. So give me your favorite place to take a tourist, Trey.
I would say Brooklyn Bridge Park. I think that's my favorite place. Like go under Brooklyn Bridge, walk along the park there, walk along the water, see all of the skyline of Manhattan, the ocean, it's also like one of the few places in New York where you feel the space, you feel the expanse, but you also get to take in the grandeur of the city, the kind of mountain range of New York City skyline. It's beautiful. I love doing that.
And I remember when I lived in Brooklyn, there was the carousel that you're talking about. That's
right there.
Yeah, the carousel.
Simon's Warehouse, the carousel. There's all these shops there now. I mean, it's crazy now. It used to be, but it's not a gem. It's not a secret gem. It's crazy. Like I was just there again this weekend and it was bonkers. But it's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Last one.
I'm ready. I'm like, knock it out of the park. Here I go.
Weirdest only in New York moment.
The first. I have two of them.
Okay.
One of them is that I did a show once where there was a gag gift for an audience member, and it was this giant stuffed white tiger. And this woman got the tiger during the show, and it was like, thank you so much, take this giant white tiger. It was so big they couldn't even walk back to their seat, and that was the joke. It was like, there's no, it was just way too much of a gift to give somebody. Huh. And this woman left the theater with it, and we were able to somehow track down the person through people that knew her we found who this person was, and we were able to get the tiger back from her on a street corner in New York. So there was this handoff of this giant stuffed white Bengal tiger, of I don't know, a large teenager. That's one. And then the other one is I just love all the interactions on the subway of different just realities of people's lives. And I remember one time there was a homeless man who would grumble really intensely, and he was intimidating, kind of large, had a beard, and he would grumble and then he would break into this amazing high-pitched soprano kind of operatic voice. So he would be and he'd be and he would do these amazing tones of like singing while grumbling, while like eating his shirt or whatever. He was just really intense, but really beautiful. And I think I stayed on like 2 extra stops to just watch him because I thought it was incredible.
Wow, I'm surprised they didn't have a card, or at least like that's amazing. Wow, that's a New York. That's an only in New York moment. I mean, my goodness. Trey, thank you so much, man. I love hearing your stories. I miss you dearly. I think you're an incredibly talented and amazing person. So thank you for taking the time to shout out your New York and your. So thank you.
Thank you, and thanks everybody who tuned in. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. All right. Be well.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.